Hi, I'm Jesse Mangan.
I'm Rob Wipond, and this is a PsychForce Short. PsychForce Short. So, Jesse, there's a new bill in California that does something that I find really disturbing and shocking, and that is that they've added the entire Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders into the bill. And what that means is that essentially you can have any kind of mental disorder that exists. There's hundreds of them in this diagnostic manual, from internet gaming disorder and caffeine disorder. They're just all over the map, along with, of course, the more well-known ones like depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, and so on. And there are studies out there already showing that 80% of the population will supposedly meet the criteria for at least one of these disorders at some point in their lifetime. So they've taken that book and essentially added it to the entire act, meaning that you can be detained and potentially committed if you have any one of these, or if you're labeled with any one of these disorders. And that really concerns me a lot. Does it concern you?
It does, but for possibly slightly different reasons. There are other states that have done similar sort of legislation, and generally states will have, instead of DSM, they'll say something along the lines of a substantial disorder of thought, mood, or behavior, something like that. And so I think generally speaking, already anyone can be detained at any time because all it takes is an allegation or suspicion that you might be disordered in some way. And so in that respect, I feel like changing that language to DSM doesn't immediately cause a lot of alarm in me. It causes alarm because it's California for me. And with California, there is a series of legislative changes that are eroding every step of this process so that there's less likely to be a hearing, that it's easier to petition. They want people to, they actually say in the law, if you petition a court or petition to have someone else detained and it doesn't work, try again. Don't worry about it. Try again. So that's already in the law. And by making it a DSM disorder, rather than having to actually describe the disordered behavior or thought or give a credible, articulate allegation, all you have to do is say, I think this person has this diagnosis, and I think that needs to be treated. I think it's making that petition process, making that early step that much easier and more streamlined. And I think that is really what the goal is here, is to create a streamlined process to funnel as many people as easily as possible into a system where terrible things can happen.
Yes, funnel is the absolutely right word for it, Jesse, and that's my concern with all of this too. And I think we should highlight for people, in case they don't know, is that one of the reasons we're both concerned about this is because however you define it, whether you're using a DSM diagnostic or a substantial disorder of the mind, some framing here, what the point is that you're labeled with a mental disorder. When that happens, now you can potentially be committed because you have the mental disorder, and that is the step one criteria under mental health laws. Because ordinary people, if you're not labeled with a mental disorder, you're allowed to be a danger to yourself or others in some way. You can climb a mountain in a risky manner. You can eat food that's bad for you and all these kinds of things. You can live a life that is in some way risky. However, when you're labeled with a mental disorder, that discrimination starts to kick in, and people start to say, we're not going to allow you to put yourself at risk in some way, shape, or form. And that's one of the real reasons that we're so concerned with why, when people really broaden these criteria, more and more people can potentially be put at risk to being committed.
Yeah, I think every legislator needs to understand that this process involves allegations and civil standards. So you're not looking at beyond a reasonable doubt for any of this. What you're dealing with is people alleging someone else might be something in some way at some point. And if you broaden that, you're going to have more people unnecessarily, unjustifiably funneled into a system that is demonstrably proven to cause harm. I'm Jesse Mangan.
I'm Rob Wipond, and this has been PsychForce Report.
PsychForce Short. Short. PsychForce Short. PsychForce Short.